Good morning, I'm Angelo Castro III.
I'm Angela, and we are the Castros.
We bring you the news.
And the views that make you think.
Sometimes we agree.
Sometimes we don't.
This is News and Views.
And here are today's headlines.
The Sandigan Bayan has raffled off the graft and malversation cases filed against former lawmaker Zaldico and several others in connection with the flood control mess.
Congressman Leandro Leviste claims Representative Edwin Guardiola is the next congressman contractor to look out for after Elizaldico.
The Akbayan party list obtains digital copies of the statements of assets, liabilities, and net worth, or SALENs, of some of the country's top officials.
The Climate Change Commission warns that up to 30% of Metro Manila could be permanently underwater by 2040 due to rising sea levels and extreme weather events.
First in the news, the first wave of cases in the massive flood control scandal has reached the Sandigan Bayan as ombudsman prosecutors file graft and malversation charges against Zaldico and several DPWH and SunWest officials. Here's the report.
The Sandigan Bayan has raffled off the graft and malversation cases filed against former lawmaker Zaldico, several officials of DPWH Mimaropa, and officers of SunWest Corporation. These cases stem from the substandard flood control project uncovered in Nauhan Oriental, Mindoro, inspected by public works officials last September. The Sandigan Bayan's 5th, 6th, and 7th divisions will handle the cases, which were filed by the Office of the Ombudsman following the recommendation of the Independent Commission for Infrastructure, or ICI. This marks the first time cases have formally been filed in connection with the flood control anomalies.
We believe that we will be able to have a deluge of cases in the next few months after the new year. Deluge na yan. Marami ng kaso yan.
The Ombudsman has recommended no bail for the malversation case, citing the amount allegedly malversed.
Because the amount malversed exceeds 8.8 million pesos, and in line with the law and jurisprudence, the panel of Ombudsman prosecutors has recommended no bail for the malversation charge.
Once the Sandigan Bayan determines probable cause, it may issue arrest warrants against the accused. The Ombudsman has also asked the court to cancel Zaldico's passport.
May mga balita nung panahon ng rally na umaaligid lang daw sa malapit lang sa Pilipinas. But I doubt it. I think it's a parang saywar yan. Kaya natatawa-tawa na lang ako nung sinusubukan na meron nagpapatalon sa amin na pauwi na raw, pauwi. Sabi ko, di umuwi na siya. Mas gusto ko yun, di ba? Kaya lang hindi umuwi. Kulang sa tapang yung tao.
But CO's legal team says they will oppose the Ombudsman's motion. Co left the country in February supposedly for medical treatment. Meanwhile, the Independent Commission for Infrastructure thanked the Ombudsman for its swift action, but deferred its recommendation on filing cases against 3 senators also linked to the scandal, saying they need to examine the new affidavits submitted by former DPWH Undersecretary Roberto Bernardo.
We are evaluating everything because of the affidavit of Yusek Bernardo. So we're studying that. So we'll have a delay of maybe 10 days from last Friday. Hopefully we'll finish it.
ICI has also asked the Justice Department to include 17 individuals in the lookout bulletin order, including DPWH personnel and SunWest executives.
Batangas 1st District Representative Leandro Leviste has renewed his call to investigate CWS party list Representative Edwin Guardiola's alleged involvement in the flood control controversy. Mobile journalist Amy Atienza has the report.
Batangas 1st District Representative Leandro Leviste continues to be persistent in its suggestion to investigate Construction Workers Solidarity or CWS party list Representative Edwin Guardiola's involvement in the flood control controversy. After showing up in the Independent Commission for Infrastructure on Tuesday, Leviste once again faced the Congress for the same call. But this time, he is backed up by former Mataas na Kahoy Mayor J. Manalo Ilagan of Batangas, tracing back the properties and practices of Guardiola in his tenure as a contractor and as a congressman.
To be fair isama si Congressman Edwin Garjola sa lalabasan ng warrant of arrest. Para naman kahit papaano, ang mga mamayang Pilipino ay mabawasan ang galit. Kahit naman papaano ay magkaroon ng katarungan.
Further, Leviste continues to reiterate that Garjola remains to be one, if not the biggest proponent of projects under the Department of Public Works and Highways. The congressman points out Garjola has a greater system than the Discayas or former Congressman Zaldico. In an interview with One News, The Big Story, Leviste claimed that Garjola secures contracts even before the budget has been approved.
He is able to get contracts even before the budget is approved by Congress by having the DPWH allegedly insert projects into the budget. There is over 20 billion pesos of projects that have a common tagging, and the internal file of the DPWH that I was able to get a copy of shows that all of these projects that are tagged together were eventually in 2025 awarded to Congressman Edwin Garjola.
Garjola is yet to be seen inside the halls of the House of Representatives since Leviste raised the concern. And as these talks continue in the lower chamber, Leviste pleaded Garjola.
Ako po ay nakiusap kay Congressman Garjola. Tayo pong dalawa ay mga Batanggenyo. Gusto natin makatulong sa ating mga kababayan. And I'm sure natutuwa din si Congressman Garjola na makatulong sa ating mga hindi kasing mapalad na kababayan.
Kapatid Amy Atienza, we are One News.
Former Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin reveals that he did not resign, contradicting the Malacanang's claim of delicadeza. Here's the report.
Both officials respectfully offered and tendered their resignations out of delicadeza.
Malacanang says delicadeza was the reason behind the supposed resignations of Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin and Budget Secretary Amina Pangandaman. Both officials were previously linked to the alleged 100 billion peso budget insertions in 2025 national budget. But in an interview on One Balita Pilipinas, the former Executive Secretary insisted he did not resign. He was removed from his post. He says the message was relayed to him by someone close to him.
He was trusted with that responsibility. Sabihin sa akin na I had to go. Magandang pakinggan yun pero hindi naman yan ang nangyari. Okay? Kung out of delicadeza na nag-resign ako, di mayroon sana sulat sila na lalabas. But they accepted nothing. I do not hesitate dahil sa pleasure ni President ako. The message was very clear that I had to go. Hindi naman ako linta.
According to Senate Blue Ribbon Committee Chairman Ping Lacson, the cabinet shakeup happened after former DPWH Undersecretary Roberto Bernardo sent a letter to President Marcos. Bernardo allegedly told Lacson that some people in Malacanang used the president's name. These include former Presidential Legislative Liaison Officer Head Adrian Bersamin and former Education Undersecretary Trigiv Olivar. Adrian is the grandnephew of the former executive secretary. In the widely circulated video of former Congressman Zaldico, Co claimed that Undersecretary Bersamin confirmed that President Marcos supposedly approved the 100 billion peso insertion. Former ES Bersamin defended Adrian, saying he does not believe he was involved in any wrongdoing.
Mahal na mahal ko si Adrian para kung sariling anak na. Hindi ko maintindihan kung bakit nadadamay ng ganyan yan. Napakabait na tao yan. Kaya yung pag-i-implicate sa kanya ng masama, hindi ko gusto yan. Hindi ko sinasang-ayunan yan.
When asked whether this issue was connected to his removal as executive secretary,
hindi ko alam kung connected or not, but I presume na may kinalaman.
Bernardo reportedly also told Lacson where the insertions went. Of the 100 billion pesos, 81 billion supposedly went to DPWH, while the rest went to other agencies. Bernardo himself allegedly handed 52 billion. He also claimed that Bersamin ensured the release of the inserted funds. But Bersamin strongly denied this.
Sinabihan siya ni Yusek Trigiv Olivar na si Secretary Bunuan asked Executive Secretary Bersamin several times, sino ba magpapacilitate itong 52 billion? Of course, isasama sa BICAM, paano ito re-release? Ang sagot ni ES Bersamin sa kanya, we will take care of it. Sila na raw ang bahala kung paano ayusin yung 52 billion.
Bakit ba sasabihin yan? Triple hearsay yan. Kahit na sino ang mag-connect sa akin dyan, hindi nyo dapat paniwalaan yan dahil wala akong kinalaman dyan. Saka hindi ko kausap yung mga yan na sinasabing kausap ko, like Mr. Bernardo. I will not allow myself to be dragged into anything na hindi ko naman ginawa or wala naman akong pakialam. Oo. So, I will be able to defend myself very easily. Sinaktan na nila ako pero hindi ako yung tao na palahiganti. Respetuhin ko sila.
Despite the controversy and despite no longer being in the palace, Bersamin says President Marcos should not be removed from the office.
Alam mo, si Presidente, napakagaling na tao yan. Ano? I'm not disparaging si Vice President, ang kakayahan niya, but I think it's safer for the Philippines to stay with President Marcos.
The Marcos family drama shows no signs of slowing down, with the presidential wife and sister appearing to take swipes at each other online. In a Facebook post, First Lady Liza Marcos shared photos of herself with foreign film producers, saying they praised Filipinos as, quote, genuine. In a follow-up post, she flagged a quote card as fake. It said she would not argue with Senator Amy out of respect for former First Lady Imelda Marcos. Hours later, Senator Amy Marcos also posted a quote card seemingly in response to Liza's. These posts came just days after Senator Amy publicly accused her brother and his wife of using illegal drugs.
Joining us now is Professor Edmund Tayao, President and CEO of the Political Economic Elemental Researchers and Strategists, or PEERS. Prof, thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right, Prof, let's start off with the issue of, former ES Lucas Bersamin's claim na hindi daw siya tinanggal at Malacanang claims that he was removed. What do you think is happening here?
Hindi siya nag-file ng resignation.
Anyone in the cabinet serves, sabi nga nila, no, quote-unquote, at the pleasure of the president. So, to my mind, the significance of which is the same, no? Whether you resigned or you were asked to resign or tinanggal, doesn't really matter because at the end of the day, the position really depends mainly on the trust and confidence of the president. So, I'm inclined to think that given the statement of the former executive secretary, he acknowledges this, and even in the supposed kasi sabi niya hindi siya nag-resign, so I'm using the phrase supposed resignation letter. The first line says the first line acknowledges, no, that the appointing power really has the prerogative, no, to choose who will serve in the first as the first official family of the president. So yeah, it doesn't really matter to me. What matters significantly is the question whether it has something to do with the controversy
right.
that is being heard now.
Why would then Malacanang come out and say that he resigned rather than just say we removed him? Is this a matter of optics given Zaldico's statements?
Pwedeng optics, no? Or pwedeng yun naman talaga ang kanilang pagtingin dyan, no? Kasi katulad nga, no, I've seen a number of those who underwent or experienced the same process, no? Kasi kahit naman nag-resign ka pero binigyan ka na ng thank you letter, ibig sabihin, binigyan ka na ng signal to resign. So, paano mo i-interpret yun? Nag-resign ka o tinanggal ka? But, just the same, the effect is equivalent. No? So you're no longer in the position. So to my mind, it could be optics because at the end of the day, this is political, whether we like it or not.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what do you say about nga paano po itong ginawa nila kay former ES Lucas Bersamin and also Budget Secretary Amina Pangandaman na they were removed or they resigned in the position because of yung natag yung pangalan nila doon nga sa statement na may kinalaman sila sa mga budget scheme. And kasama rin yung grand-nephew ni ES Bersamin. What do you say about yung issue ng nepotism and the way they was let go? And do you believe na meron silang hand dito sa nangyari sa budget scheme na to?
Maraming marami ang tanong mo, no? So isa una yung nepotism. Yung nepotism hindi mo maiaalis yan sa klase ng gobyerno natin at sa klase ng politika natin, no? Paulit-ulit kong sinasabi na ang problema wala sa personalidad. Kaya lalo na kapag ka nagpo-post ako at binabanatan ako ng mga DDS, nilalagyan ko na lang ng smiley kasi natatawa na ako no? Kasi ang babaw kasi ng mga banat. Hindi nila maintindihan na ang issue ng korupsyon hindi kayang i-explain ng isang personalidad at hindi din kayang solusyonan ng isang personalidad. No, kaya ako sinasabi ito kasi yung question mo ng nepotism dahil nga limitado yung klase ng politika natin sa mga personalidad, kaya tinatagalog ko na baka hindi pa ako maintindihan no? Talagang kukuha ka ng tao na malapit sa iyo.
Correct.
Kasi wala kang mekanismo We have no real political parties and even the civil service, no? Pasensya na pero pasintabi sa mga profesional na naninilbihan sa gobyerno pero ang katotohanan niyan, bago ka makapasok, siyempre kailangan alam mo kung merong bakanting pwesto. So, merong tutulong sa iyo para makapasok dyan. Now, it's more a question of performance more than whether or not one is related to another. Because again, if I may emphasize, talagang personalan ang tawag dito, sistema, no? For lack of a better term na meron tayo sa gobyerno. Ngayon, may kinalaman ba sila o wala? Babalikan natin ulit yung sistema. Kasi hindi pa, kaya minsan natatawa na lang ako, ngayon naiinis na rin ako doon sa pinipilit nitong mga DDS na wala pa daw napapakulong. Alam mo, kahit na saang sulok ka ng mundo magpunta, kapag meron kang kinasuhan, unang-una iimbestigahan mo muna yan. You will be in other words, it takes time before it actually happens. And how much time have passed already since the bombshell from the president himself that there are these scandalous transactions? No? So, ini-expect mo kagad may makukulong. Hindi naman katulad nung nakaraang administrasyon yan na pagka ikaw pinagsuspetsahan, hindi ka na nga kakasuhan no? Alam mo na, itutumba ka na lang. Ganun ang hindi pwedeng ganun no? But I'm still inclined to think, and this was even acknowledged by Baguio City Mayor Magalong himself, no? Who enjoys at least some confidence as far as the public is concerned. Siya mismo tinanong, maayos ba yung proseso ng ICI? Tinanong din siya, bakit hindi tinetelevised ng ICI? In-explain niyang mabuti ito na maayos pa ng proseso ng ICI and so on and so on. So, my point is, we have to allow the whole process to actually happen and find out kung ang resulta nito katulad nung Napoles dati at saka yan yung pinakamatindi tong Parmali. Isang lang yung naikulong mo, no? At parang ang pinalalabas mo, Yusek lang ang kayang gumawa ng lahat nung nangyari. No, kung ganun pa din ang magiging resulta, talagang pilitin na nating mag-resign to lahat, hindi isa lang. Kasi kapag pumalit yung isa, hindi tayo nakakasiguro. So malaking kinalaman ito doon sa pag-resign nila DBM Secretary at ES Bersamin, not so much because they're involved, but because even before a formal investigation can be started, ginudge na sila kagad ng mga tao ng mga DDS. Hindi ba ganyan din ang nangyari kay Speaker Martin Romualdez? Hindi ko sinasabing wala siyang kinalaman dito, pero hindi ba't yung title na tambaloslos, bago pa pumutok lahat itong issue na ito, pinalabas na nila. So ganun sila kagaling no, yung sirain ang imahe ng isang tao at gumawa ng istorya. Yan ang problema, kaya nagkakaroon tayo ng hatian. But again, if I may emphasize, siguro maswerte tayo kung meron tayong makikita isa, dalawa na politiko na talagang masasabi nating malinis. Because again, given the kind of politics and governance that we have, we really cannot excuse or free anyone from blame either because of omission or commission. So, yun lang ang aking explanation dyan. Wala nang iba.
So would you say then, maraming nagsasabi, good move daw yung ginawa ni Ombudsman Remulla with the kinds of cases he filed to ensure na may possibly a high rate of success kaysa yung pipilitin daw niya yung big amount, I think that was plunder, na may pag-asa na baka daw matagal, ma-delay, ma-dismiss due to technicalities. So would you say na maganda yung direction niya na he will file cases, for example kay Zaldico, per case, per corruption issue daw, hindi niya as a whole?
I think he's in a far better position to determine that, and I will, of course, defer to him. He's not just an ombudsman. He's not just a former DOJ secretary. He's not just a lawyer, but his experience really is very much into prosecution. So, and kahit yung mga kilala ko mga abogado na talagang may experience pagdating sa pagtatry ng mga kaso, yan din ang nadidinig ko. So, I suppose it's a well-advised move on the part of the ombudsman.
Well, yung nangyari pong speech ng kapatid ni si Senator Amy Marcos, and of course, we all know sister ng ating Pangulo during the peace rally of INC has become headlines of international news yesterday. What do you think is going to be the effect on this on our country? Politically, economically.
Oo. Alam mo, two takeaways, Angela, no? One, you mentioned about the speech. I don't know whether we can even call that a speech, no? And sabihin na natin na totoo yung nagsasabi ni Senator Amy. It leaves a bad taste in the mouth, so to speak. Sabi nga ni Senator Ping Lacson, hindi Filipino yung ganitong paraan kasi kung merong problema, lalong-lalo na sa magkapatid, at yun ang nakakalungkot dito, magkapatid ito. Hindi ba ninyo pwedeng pag-usapan yan? Meron pang mga, babalikan ko yung DD. Tunto ako dito sa mga to, akala nila nabibuisit nila ako baka sila nabibuisit sa akin. So, ang sinasabi ko lang, sabi nila magkapatid daw, so kailangan daw paniwalaan natin. Sabi ko, ako matanda na ako. Kaming magkakapatid, magkakasama kami nung kaming mga bata, and therefore we actually know what's going on in our individual lives. Pero eventually, pag nagkatrabaho ka, nagkaroon ka ng sarili mong pamilya, eventually hindi mo na alam talaga kung ano nangyayari, no? And let me just put an end to, and I hope it can put an end. Alam mo, script talaga yung sinusunod ng mga DDS umpisa pa lang, pinaparatangan na nila ang Pangulo na gumagamit ng droga. Hindi resonate, hindi pinapansin. So, kumambyo sila. Corruption yung hinanap nilang issue. Sinakyan nila itong issue ng corruption. No? Hindi pa din nag-stick. No? Actually, kung hindi pa nag-bombshell ang presidente nung SONA, hindi naman magdidikit yung corruption pero sila nagsimula nung akusasyon ng corruption nag-backfire sa kanila, no? Kasi for obvious reasons, lalo na nung iniimbestigahan nito mga corruption na to, much of what transpired have been traced in the previous administration. So pagka sinasabi nilang marumi itong gobyernong to at malinis yung nakaraang gobyerno, parang hindi ka ba nanginginig dyan sa pinagsasabi mo? So hindi nag-work yung corruption, bumalik sila ngayon sa droga na hindi na nila natandaan na matagal na itong issue ng droga na ito. Huling-huli, kung talagang nagdodroga ang Pangulo, makikita mo naman sa pananalita ng Pangulo. Makikita mo sa galaw ng Pangulo. I don't know, but I've seen so many people who are actually drug addicts, so to speak. And you can very well say in the physical appearance of the person who's a user, who's an addict, and even in the behavior, and take note, yung health ng isang tao. Kung sa edad ng Pangulo at gumagana pa ng maayos yung mga pyesa niya, ibig sabihin that there's nothing wrong with him. Now, you mentioned another thing, foreign impact. I don't think it will have any foreign impact. Albeit that I will hazard to say na merong foreign interest dito. Kasi lagi ko nang ini-explain yan, and our firm has been really monitoring this. No, this is vintage playbook as far as this modern warfare is concerned. Hindi naman putukan ng gera ngayon nagsisimula yan sa disinformation. No, at matagal na namin sinasabi to. It's a good thing that this time siguro hindi na maiiwasan tingnan ng mga otoridad na tingnan talaga itong foreign interference na ito, because whether we like it or not, it's already glaring. Saan ka nakakita mga aircon pa ng mga tent, no? Tapos talagang fleet of buses, no, coming from different areas, no, to orchestrate this kind of rally. And I will even specify it already. This is very much a playbook of our good friend China, no, which is also used in other countries. And we have already reports to verify this playbook, so to speak.
So, but for context and for our viewers, you're talking about yung rally sa EDSA done with UPI, done by the UPI, na ngayon merong issue po sa kanila na foreign funded yung kanilang naging rally doon, which is right now dininay naman po ni General Pokis. You're talking about that, right?
Yeah, you could say that is one of those possible possible activities and organizations funded by foreign entities, no, by China, to be more specific. Pero alam mo, more than the rallies, no, nagsisimula nga yan sa disinformation no. Actually, dapat tingnan ng gobyerno yung mga pages na nagpapakalat ng napakaraming fake news, no. Hindi naman nito lang nagsimula yan no? So hindi lang ngayon lang nagsimula yan, Angelo, no? Matagal na.
Right.
Bago pa mag-eleksyon, grabe na, no, yung mga nagpapalabas ng grabe ang gulo sa Pilipinas. Yun yung una nilang playbook
Yes,
Merong, 'di ba, nakwento ko nga din dito sa programa ninyo na merong kaming tinignan na video na di umano grabe na yung law and order. This was I think 2 months before the midterm election. Pinalalabas nila na grabe na yung gulo, na meron pang ang tawag dito, meron pang riot sa isang mall. Pero pagka tiningnan mo yung video, may nakalagay doon na ang tawag dito, JCPenney.
Yes, that's right.
So sabi ko, wala naman JCPenney sa Pilipinas At 2 bansa lang ang alam ko may JCPenney bukod sa Estados Unidos, kung hindi ako nagkakamali, Argentina. No? Paano naging mukha kasing mga Pilipino yung mga tao doon sa riot, no? Kasi mga Latino So mga kahawig natin talaga itong mga ito, no? Hindi ko sinasabing gwapo yung mga Pilipino, pero gwapo naman talaga. No? So in other words, alam mo, at the end of this day, hindi ako naiinis na-amuse nga ako dito sa mga style nila, no? At ang lumalabas, hindi mo talaga maloloko yung mga Pilipino. Hindi naman tayo mga ob-ob So lumalabas dito, talagang from the very start, there was already intent on the part of groups, no, to undermine the administration and essentially put in place someone that is friendlier to them. Let's just put it at that. Friendly to
so
them.
yung minomonitor nyo po yan, yung group ninyo, and you have a strong evidence to back up this theory?
I've in fact posted already in social media at least snapshots of our report, because again, at the end of the day, it's not for a private firm to say that this is actually happening. We can only say that it should be investigated. Okay. And this is what I'm saying. And again, it's a good thing na nakita ko na sa report na tinitingnan na nga talaga ito ng mga otoridad. No, ngayon kung sasabihin nila na Prof, wala naman kaming nakita Well, at least we've already given them initial reports in this regard. No, whether they will be able to trace it or not is an entirely different story. But again, what I'm saying is while we don't have any specific evidence tying a particular country, we have reports detailing already a playbook. And if, in other words, if you put two and two things together, yung step-by-step process na ginagawa, no, na lumabas na sa ibang bansa, no, napakita na, no, and in fact maraming nakalistang mga bansa na talagang kasama doon sa kanilang operation, hindi malayo na talagang merong foreign interference at pwede nating sabihin na this particular country really, no, is involved.
Alright, with that, maraming salamat po ulit sa inyong insight. Professor Ed Montayo, President and CEO of the Political Economic Elemental Researchers and Strategists, or PEERS. Maraming salamat po muli. Well, we'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning. You're still watching News and Views here on One News.
The Pasig Regional Trial Court Branch 167 has convicted Alice Guo, also known as Guo Huaping, and several associates in the qualified trafficking in persons case linked to the Baofu compound. Now, the court ruled that Guo, along with Jamelyn Santos Cruz, Rachel Malonzo Carrion, and Walter Wong Rong organized the trafficking operations inside the compound. It also found Wang Wei Li, Wu Li Dong, Nong Ding Chang, and Lang Shu Po guilty of directly committing acts of trafficking. All 8 individuals were sentenced to life imprisonment in order to pay a 2 million peso fine each per case, in addition to monetary reparations to their victim complainants. The court also ordered the forfeiture of the Baofu compound in favor of the government.
The statements of assets, liabilities, and net worth, or SALNs, of some of the country's top officials have been released, at least by the Akbayan party list, which obtained the digital copies. President Bongbong Marcos declared a net worth of over 389 million pesos in his 2024 SALN, based on the Civil Service Commission's rules for filing. However, he also attached an appraisal by Cuervo Appraisers Incorporated, which valued his net worth at 1.37 billion pesos. The discrepancy is largely due to differences in the value assessment of his 21 real estate properties, including agricultural and residential land. For her part, Vice President Sara Duterte declared a net worth of 88.5 million pesos in her 2024 SALN. That's an increase of over 17 million pesos from her 2023 net worth of 71 million. Her assets include properties held jointly with her husband, Man Scarpio, and their children. Former President Rodrigo Duterte declared a net worth of 37.3 million pesos in his 2022 SALN, an increase of 8 million since he assumed the presidency in 2016. Meanwhile, Duterte appointee and former Ombudsman Samuel Martires reported a net worth of 78.1 million pesos in his 2024 SALN.
The Independent Commission for Infrastructure has delayed filing cases against several senators linked to the flood control anomaly following a new supplemental affidavit submitted by former DPWH Undersecretary Roberto Bernardo. Mobile journalist Ailes de los Santos has the report.
In a press conference on Wednesday, the Independent Commission for Infrastructure has confirmed that it has deferred filing of cases against 3 incumbent or former senators linked to the flood control anomaly. This is after former DPWH Undersecretary Roberto Bernardo's submission of supplemental affidavit postponing a supposed case referral to the Office of the Ombudsman this week.
Well, we are evaluating everything because of the affidavit of Yusek Bernardo. So we're studying that. So we'll have a delay of maybe 10 days from last Friday. Hopefully we'll finish it. We'll have to look at the first and the second affidavit.
The commission, however, did not name the officials, but it can be recalled that in Bernardo's testimony in the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee hearing, his allegedly lobbied kickbacks for Senator Jinggoy Estrada, Senator Mark Villar, former Senator and now Education Secretary Sani Angara, and former Senators Grace Poe and Nancy Binay. Reyes meanwhile called the Ombudsman's filing of the first case in Sandigan Bayan a triumph.
This filing inspires us to work even harder for our countrymen. It is a hard-earned victory and a triumphant step forward on the road to lasting and rightful justice. It shows that the machinery of law and due process is working as it should.
The ICI has also requested to DOJ a no immigration lookout bulletin order against 17 individuals. Some from DPWH Region 4B Mimaropa and Sunwest Incorporated. This is to prevent obstruction from the ongoing case investigation in the government's flood control anomaly. The Commission has also requested the Bureau of Immigration to immediately inform them and other law enforcement agencies of any planned or attempted departure by any of the individuals identified. Kapatid Arles de los Santos, we are One News.
Despite the political noise, President Bongbong Marcos kept a business-as-usual schedule on Wednesday. At Malacanang, he led the oath-taking of Ralph Recto as the new Executive Secretary, Frederick Go as Finance Secretary, and Frederick Vida as Justice Secretary. The President then proceeded to the PhilSports Complex with First Lady Liza Marcos and son Vincent for the launch of her new program for athletes. He toured the new gym, checked the athletes' dormitory, and visited the Sports Museum showcasing memorabilia of icons like Manny Pacquiao.
Because walang Pilipino na hindi kakampi sa Olympian natin o sa athlete natin na lumalaban. So kahit hindi kayo magkasundo, yun na nga, hindi ba balitang-balita si Manny Pacquiao pag lumalaban doon sa Mindanao, ceasefire. Dahil manunood muna sila ng laban ni Manny Pacquiao. And the same thing with you, Hidelin, ganun din.
Well, I just realized na etong new Executive Secretary natin, si Ralph Recto, is the third Executive Secretary of the Marcos administration.
First, the first was
Vic Rodriguez.
Pero very short. Like
very short. And
a few months after the campaign, di ba, wala na nag-away na sila.
And then, of course, si former ES Lucas Bersamin, and this is the third one.
The third, oo.
Do you remember yung kay Duterte? Di ba merong Abelia,
Si Abelia was the spokesperson. Executive Secretary, si Salvador Medialdea. Si former ES Medialdea. Alright, don't go away because we're not done yet. Stay with us.
Tiyak na mas gaganahan na sa pag-iensayo ang ating mga national athletes ngayong newly renovated na ang PhilSports Complex dito sa Pasig. At hindi natin pinalampas ang pagkakataon na masilip yan.
Present ang ating national athletes sa muling pagbubukas ng ilang facilities dito sa PhilSports Complex Pasig. At kahit ang Pangulo, First Lady Liza Araneta Marcos at First Son Vinny Marcos dumalo rin. Kasama sa renovations ang dormitory na may 218 bedroom capacity at air-conditioned gymnasium para sa national athletes na bago lahat ang gamit at equipment. Bukas din ang museum para sa mga nais bumisita. Naglalaman niya ng memorabilia ng prominent athletes sa bansa gaya na lang ni People's Champ Manny Pacquiao. Sa itaas niyan ang dining area ng athletes, classrooms at function rooms. Pinangunahan naman ni PBBM ang ribbon cutting at maikling programa at ayon sa Pangulo, mahalaga raw na parte ang gobyerno sa pagpapalago ng sports sa bansa.
And that's why to see these new facilities, these new arrangements that you have done for our athletes is something that brings a great deal of joy to my heart because our athletes really should be supported. Government has to play its part. We cannot depend on that informal support group that most athletes get.
Paalala naman ni Olympic medalist Heidelin Diaz sa mga atleta.
Alagaan natin ang binigay na facilities na meron tayo ngayon. And also, meron ng supporta from the government. So, ang gagawin natin is bring back also, give back sa Pilipino. Give them the good part.
Bukod sa mga pasilidad sa Pasig, nakalinya na rin ang renovation sa mga sports complex sa Maynila at Baguio, ayon kay PSC Chairman Patrick Gregorio.
You know, if you see the Philippine athletes happy, if we see the stakeholders happy, the community happy, It's the best thing to do.
Mga kapatid, Mobile Journal Denise Valdesancho po hatid ang mukha ng balita.
Welcome back. You're still watching News and Views here on One News.
The Climate Change Commission has warned that up to 30% of Metro Manila could be permanently underwater by 2040 due to rising sea levels and extreme weather events. CCC Commissioner Rachel Ann Herrera said about 160 square kilometers of the capital region are at risk. She stressed that while the national government has issued climate policies, local governments must turn them into concrete actions such as zoning, plans, building guidelines, and community awareness programs. The National Adaptation Plan 2023 to 2025 also predicts significant sea level rise in Metro Manila over the next few decades. Kailangan, this is a very concerning issue for us, lalo na every year tayo ay dinadatnan ng mga pag-ulan dito at pagbaha. And every year talaga nakikita mo yung paggrabe.
Tsaka yung baha nito, wala pa ito yung actual rise in sea level. I mean, it's rising, but wala pa yung sa level na yan. Could you imagine if sea level rises to the levels na minimension nila by 2040, tapos uulan pa? Diba, ano pa matitira sa Metro Manila? Now, the government has these reports in their hands. What plans should we start doing? Diba? Ang nakakalungkot dito kasi, alam naman natin na every administration na dumadaan, iba-iba ang polisiya nilalabas.
That's why we have to follow a master plan. Although we understand naman, we recognize na each city, diba, sa atin, iba-iba yung dapat na nagiging solusyon pagdating dito sa mga drainage system natin, etc. But during the summit nung Climate Change Commission, I think the other day, Mayor Joy Belmonte was there and she talked about how DPWH daw ignores yung drainage system plan for Quezon City. That's why for most part of the season natin ng mga bagyo, nakikita natin ng Quezon City, isa sa mga pinaka-nalubog this year. And even yung Commonwealth that they don't normally see na lumulubog sa baha, lumubog na, diba?
And that's why this time the Metro Manila Mayor's Council, along with the MMDA, should really start meeting about this, a master plan for Metro Manila. Hindi na pwede per city. Kasi apparently, di ba, I mean, we've been talking about this, if Quezon City builds now certain drainage projects and dikes and walls to reroute floodwater, ang nababaha naman is Marikina.
Yes.
Pag nabaha ang Marikina and then they find a way to reroute yung water, ang nag-iipon naman is sa Caloocan area. So it has to be a synergistic plan.
Holistic plan.
Holistic, synergistic, lahat is talagang all the mayors come together to plan a better water system.
Totoo yan. I remember, di ba, during one of the typhoons natin dito nung mga nakaraang buwan, nagkaroon ng ganyang plano, both Cainta at saka Pasig, because magkadikit sila and they work together para nga daw hindi, sabi ni Mayor Vico Soto dun sa mayor ng Cainta, wag mo muna isara yung floodgate nyo dahil pag sinara nyo yung floodgate ninyo, sa amin naman makukulong yung tubig. So they did this plan na para medyo kahit paano umayos-ayos yung flow ng tubig. And that is the very reason na sinasabi din ni Mr. Mahar Lagmay, 'di ba, na dapat daw talaga science-based yung solution na i-approach natin pagdating dito sa mga pagbaha natin, especially dito sa Metro Manila, no. Ang nagiging problem daw natin talaga kasi we keep on building dikes, no, yung mga floodgate na yan, etc., na hindi natin ginagawa yung tamang paraan, which is yung tamang pag-flow ng tubig.
Tsaka yung dikes na binibuild natin serves the purpose of the area it is built in. In other words, bibili tayo ng dike sa QC para sa QC lang.
Yeah.
Without taking into consideration yung effects sa town or sa city sa kabila, di ba? So, anyway, to further discuss this matter, we are joined by Albert De La Cruz, Commissioner of the Climate Change Commission. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, good morning po. Magandang umaga for the opportunity to serve at magandang umaga po sa inyo sa studio at sa ating mga tagapakinig at nanonood sa buong Pilipinas.
Alright, sir, let's start off. Na 30% of NCR could be underwater by 2040. That's very alarming. Can you explain what is this based on?
Ito po ay base sa tinatawag na IPCC report, yung Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, na kung saan ang sinasabi ho nila that the the trajectory ng pag-iinit ng ating mundo.
Yeah.
Because of the GHG emission, yung pong pag-angat ay tuloy-tuloy pa rin dahil dito yung mga bansa na tinatawag na vulnerable, kasama dyan ang Pilipinas. As a matter of fact, we are considered to be the most vulnerable country 3 years in a row by the World Risk Index, na ang isa sa mga tinatawag na epekto o yung long-term effect ay ang flooding. Of which ito ay malala kaysa sa tinatawag nating global average. Ang global average natin ay 2 mm per year, pero ang Pilipinas ay nakakaranas ng 4 to 5 mm a year sa rising sea level. Bukod dito, mayroong double impact. Tumataas ang tubig ng dagat, bumababa naman ang lupa because of what we call subsidence. Dahil nga gumagamit tayo ng aquifer. Yung tubig sa ilalim ng lupa, ito ay ating ginagamit through pump. Kaya we are advocating and we are encouraging the use of surface water. So bababa tayo ng 4 to 5 millimeter, tapos tataas ang lupa. So these are the impacts among others. And because of lack of poor environmental planning.
I grew up, sir, being told by my parents also na eventually floods would happen in maybe not in my lifetime pero sa mga apo ko daw. It's because also may effect daw ang pagtaas ng temperature and then magme-melt ang polar ice caps. Ganito ba rin, will that have an effect on us as well?
Yeah, yun po ang pagtaas ng ating yung pagtaas ng sea level o yung tubig ng dagat. Yan po yung direct effect niya, na yan po ay tumutungo sa mga area kamukha po ng Pilipinas.
So when you say flooded po, is it similar to what we see sa Venice?
It is somehow similar, pero kasi ang Venice, yan ay kumbaga that is already part of their natural geologic feature,
Yeah.
Kamukha ng mga ilang bayan natin naman dito, sa bandang Mindanao, sa mga area na kung saan ang ating mga kababayan na mga nasa baybaying lupa. These are natural geologic features. Ang sa atin kasi, ang kaibahan, yan ay tinatawag nating anthropogenic activity. Meaning to say, before we call this acts of God, acts of God. But ito hindi na acts of God. This is anthropogenic, gawang tao.
So ano po yung which areas po ba yung nakikita natin na most vulnerable dito sa sinasabi po natin na rising sea level?
Yeah, makikita po natin yan na meron po tayong mga mapa, yung mga risk disaster map natin, yung sa makikita natin din sa mga mapa ng DOST, pwede ho nating i-google. Yan po, kamukha po ng mga area ng mga Kamanaba area na dati nang lumulubog. Yan ay mga below sea level hanggang dito sa may Metro Manila. Lahat ng area fronting, we call them coastal cities and municipalities. Hindi lang naman dito sa Metro Manila. 60% of our municipality sa LGUs, for that matter, dito sa buong Pilipinas, ay considered to be coastal. Kaya ang ating pong panukala dyan is, number one, yung mga area na tinatawag nating no-build zone, kasama yung buffer zone at kasama yung salvage zone. Ang salvage zone, ito yung mga nasa 14 meters from the median of the low tide and high tide. Kukuhanin doon, tapos at least 40 meters no-build zone yan. So mayroon man mga light structure. And then after that, supposed to be, ang pwedeng mag-build ay yung mga tinatawag natin mga tourism. Pero hindi siya pwedeng yung mga residential na pwedeng tulugan, hindi ubra. So we are also advocating for the passage of the National Land Use Act, na luwa, para hindi magiging chapsuy yung ating master planning na rinig ko kanina. Pinagkukwentuhan nyo nga na kailangan mayroong mga master plan. All of this supposed to be are under the National Land Use Act at magkaroon ng severe penalty for any violation. Specifically, kung nagkaroon ng tinatawag na exemptions. Ngayon, unfortunately, if I may add, Unfortunately, ang bawat sanggunian ngayon ng buong Pilipinas, sangguniang bayan, sangguniang panglunsod, sila ay nakakagawa ng tinatawag na ordinance exempting. Diyan medyo nagkakatalo. So, kung mayroong silang zoning ordinance na, kapag may pumasok na negosyante, malakas kay mayor, malakas kay sa sanggunian, at sila ay nag-usap, pumayag sila, they can on their own make an ordinance exempting specific projects and programs. Doon nagkakaroon ng pagiging chapsuy yung ating master planning.
Exactly. And of course, mahabang usapin pa rin yung Land Use Act na yan, dahil every time din na magkakaroon ng bagyo dito, sir, yung mga kababayan natin, lagi na lang natin ine-evacuate doon sa kanilang mga areas na dapat naman pa talaga at the very first concern natin na hindi talaga sila dapat nakatira doon. Alright, but we'll get back to you on that. Mahababang usapin yan. Unfortunately, we don't have much time. But maraming salamat po sa inyong insights. Albert De La Cruz, Commissioner of the Climate Change Commission.
Maraming salamat po.
Now, in other news, the Philippines is taking center stage in global gymnastics as the country officially opens the third FIG Artistic Gymnastics Junior World Championships 2025. Mobile Journal Francis Rivera has the report.
The stage is all set as the Philippines hosts the third FIG Artistic Gymnastics Junior World Championships 2025. The competition opened with the press conference and media welcome reception at the Marriott Grand Ballroom in Pasay City last Wednesday, November 19. FIG President Morinari Watanabe and FIG Secretary General Nicolas Bonpane expressed their gratitude to the Sports Commission for hosting this year's event and for extending a warm welcome to the athletes competing in the tournament.
I would like to thank the Philippine Sports Commission, especially my good friend, John Patrickson. Thank you very much for help in promoting this World Junior Championship in the Philippines and beyond.
So a huge thank you once again to Cynthia, to the team, to the Philippine Gymnastics Association and all the stakeholders that make it happen. Thank you very much.
President of the Gymnastics Association of the Philippines or GAP, Cynthia Carrion, Newport World Research Chief Hospitality Manager and Senior Vice President John Lucas and Cathy Mercado, Philippine Sports Commission Chairman Patrick Gregorio, and PSC Commissioner Edward Haiku were among those present at the press conference. GAP President Cynthia Carrion emphasized that this event is not only about winning medals, but also about fostering camaraderie among young athletes from around the world.
It's not for the gold medal, like he said. It's not for the medals, but it's for the camaraderie that goes around here with the young kids. It's so beautiful to see. I love it. They get together, they get beer, because they're all in one area. It's a very, very, very nice way to have a competition, really, especially for the youth.
Meanwhile, Philippine Sports Commission Chairman Patrick Gregorio emphasized the importance of sporting events in promoting tourism.
The biggest tourism events in the world are sports events. The more exciting tourism activities in the world are sports events. So it is a very strategic way of promoting our country.
Chairman Pato also added that young athletes and sport events are considered an investment as they are part of the government's national program. It was also during the event that the official mascots of the third FIG Junior World Championships were introduced to the media. Meet Lila and Bunghao. Catch athletes from 77 countries with over 800 participants as they compete in the third FIG Junior World Championships 2025 for artistic gymnastics, happening from November 20 to 24, 2025 at Newport World Resorts. Mga kapatid, mobile journalist Francis Rivera, we are One News.
And here's the quote for the day. They always say time changes things, but you actually have to change them yourself. From Andy Warhol. And that wraps up today's episode of News and Views.
Join us again tomorrow. Angela Lagunsad Castro.
I am Angelo Castro III. Kapatid, we are one news.
All sides, all the time.